3. I am so excited about this hour of the programme because I have got the opportunity to meet some amazing people, and if you're listening this afternoon, I would find the time to listen between now and 4 o'clock because we're going to learn an awful lot. My first guest, well, during the Second World War, she worked at Scarborough's secret listening station between 1943 and 1945. Muriel Davison was a radio mechanic with the Wrens. Her job was to service the valve radios, which played an important part in finding out what Hitler and his forces were up to. Her story is told in a book which she's written about her experiences. She's in Scarborough for a book signing in the town tomorrow afternoon, but I'm delighted to say that Muriel, thanks to her son Mark, we'll give him some credit here, joined me live in the studio. But I'm told, Muriel, that we're not allowed to talk to you, son. We're just going to talk to you because you're the star. Hello and welcome.
Oh, hello.
Thank you so much for stopping off on the way to Scarborough. How long is it since you were last in Scarborough then?
Oh, only a few years. I've been up quite a lot since the war.
Okay, so let's talk about you and what happened. We'll find out how the book came about because it's pure chance that you actually put the book together. So tell us about your journey to Scarborough. When did you sign up with the Wrens?
1942.
Okay, and at that point, when you signed up with them, presumably you were based in the south of England, were you?
Yes, I was. I was in Surrey.
And what did you do originally?
Well, I worked in Downing Street at the Colonial Office. I went in when I was 17.
That must have been an interesting time.
I was in the library, yes, I loved it there. I loved it.
What kind of things were you doing during that time?
Well, seeing visitors that came in, clerical work, and seeing visitors that came in, sometimes from the colonies, and helping them look up some books which they might find of interest to them or of use. And,
so, how did you go from that to actually working in mechanics then?
Well, I think a lot of the day, while I'm on this subject, a lot of the day was spent down in the air raid shelters because the bomb... Yes, and when I was out one day, about 1942, I saw some ladies coming down from the Admiralty dressed in navy blue with little navy hats, and they were the Wrens, original Wrens. And I think that would be rather nice to join, which I did in 1943, I think.
So that was a good move for you.
It was.
Just let's go back to the time, most of the time spent in the air raid shelters. That must have been a very, very frightening time in London.
Do you know, at the age of 17, I don't think we did get very frightened. And in the book, I put that one day I got to the corner of Downing Street and there was a German bomber coming overhead and the air raid sounded, and I went to run round Downing Street just to go in the door, and a little road sweeper in the road rushed across, pushed me on the pavement and lay on top of me.
Good grief. So really, you were very lucky, weren't you, to sort of survive. It's interesting that you say at 17 that you kind of didn't think about it. Yeah,
I don't think we did like that. We wondered why our parents worried so much, but I suppose we weren't conscious of the dangers, were we?
No, I don't suppose you were, really. And during that time, whilst you were in London, I mean, did you get time to go out and sample the nightlife when you were able to do it? Because, of course, there'd have been many blackouts during that time as well.
Yes, there were blackouts all the time. I went to one or two dances in town and locally. Not a lot more than that, really. So, seeing friends.
The next journey for you after Downing Street, did you go straight to Scarborough or did you do something in between?
Well, it's all in the book, but that I've written. But no, we had to go on training courses. I was chosen to be a wireless radio mechanic, they called them, and because in the book I've put it because I just matriculated at school in mathematics and physics, and you had to have that to go into that category. So they said, yes, you go into that category, and I was signed on, but I didn't join until the next year, I think. And then, it might have been 1942 I joined. I think it's all in the book. And, yes, and then we went for training courses after that. We landed up at Chelsea at Crosby Hall. I don't know whether you've ever heard of Crosby Hall.
I've not heard of Crosby Hall, no.
No, it's a very old place that's been renovated, and it was taken over by the Navy, and we were billeted there, which was very nice. But from Chelsea, I could get home to Surbiton, quite frequently.
Oh, so you weren't too far away,
but
were you?
But we did a very, very long course there. It was the Wireless City and Guilds course, which was really a 2-year course. We did it in 7 months, the whole thing. In 7 months, not just part of it.
And what kind of things, because I've only just got the book now, so I haven't had time to read it.
No.
So tell me, what kind of things did you learn to do on the wireless course? What were you trained to do?
We had to learn how to service the radio wireless receivers, they called them. They're not radio, so I don't know why we were radio mechanics, but they were wireless receivers that were sent in from the receiving room, which were taking down the messages from the German U-boats and E-boats and things like that.
And that's the job that you did when you were in Scarborough?
Yes, and when I got sent to Scarborough, yes, and up there working at Scarborough, yes, that's what we had to do, service the wireless sets.
And how often did they break down?
Well, we don't know whether they were the same ones. They may have been different ones that broke down. But in the book, there's all the different wireless sets that we had to service. And the main one was an HRO. A lot of gentlemen will recognise that name.
Tell us about
and all the circuits are in there and the work I did on them.
And this is all from the original sort of logbooks that you had at the time, and all the work that you did.
And my own logbooks, you see, where we had to work it out ourselves.
I've got here list of wireless receivers used. The HRO, our most frequently used receiver, an American 9-tube shortwave general coverage communications receiver used by the Navy and the Army.
That was the main one.
How much pressure was there on you to fix the equipment? Because obviously at that time it was to try and intercept as many messages as possible.
Yes. Well, if we got the service them all right, I don't ever remember them being checked when they were sent back to the receiving room. Then they were given to the girls again, and Wrens and sailors in the receiving room. There were a lot of them there.
And then what happened to the messages then? I mean, presumably you knew. Where did the messages go then?
We didn't know what they were doing. They didn't tell us what they were doing. We weren't allowed to with the Secrecy Act, you see.
Of course.
Never spoke about it for years.
And during your time in Scarborough, can you remember places that you used to go and visit? Where did you go? Look, I can see.
Do you know Scarborough?
I do know Scarborough.
Yes.
I love Scarborough, actually. It's my favourite place by the coast.
I was talking to the other lady the other day, and I said we were billeted up at the top of Peacehorn Park.
Right, yes.
And the Cecil, I think it was the Cecil Hotel, just right at the top of the little gardens there.
Yes.
And then later on we were moved down to the Crescent.
Yeah. Which is where BBC Radio York used to be. We used to have, we were in the Crescent, yes,
were
indeed.
You there then?
We were, but we're now, no, we weren't around that long.
It was an art place, wasn't it?
Yeah, but now the new studio in Scarborough is actually in the new art space, which is at the end of the Crescent.
You see. Yes.
So you moved down to the Crescent. Now, at that
that's
time,
where we spent the rest of our time. And then. Yes, they took us up from to the wireless station from there there's a picture of the driver of our truck, and all by coach.
And there were lots of great places to go to, weren't there? I think you've got
Scarborough, I've got them all in there. So in the end, we went to all these different places surrounding. They were all listed in there.
And you actually, there's memories here of dancing at the Royal Hotel.
Yes, you know that?
I do know the Royal Hotel.
Did you go dancing there?
No, I didn't go dancing in the Royal Hotel. The last time, actually, I think I was in the Royal Hotel, we were doing an event for Comic Relief or Sport Relief or something like that, with the lovely big ballroom, which is just
that's where we used to dance. You see?
Did you? And how did you meet your husband? Were you in the Wrens when you?
No, that was later.
That was later, was it? So after the Wrens, what happened to you then? Where did you go after Scarborough?
Well, of course, it all packed up. Actually, we weren't demobbed until December 1945 because of clearing up jobs. Then I went home, and of course I was on demob leave, and my husband had just came back from Burma after 4 or 5 years in Burma, and we met, and then we married.
Lovely. And how long were you married for?
62 years, and he died last year.
I know, sorry to hear that.
Well, he was very ill, but he died very peacefully, didn't he? And we just have to remember all the things we did, don't we?
Do you mind me sharing with people how young you are? Because you are quite amazing.
I'll be 89 in September.
90?
19 September. You need to get a prompt there from your son. 90 in September. That's just, you are absolutely amazing. Why did you decide to write this book? This is a lovely little book.
I didn't. Because I've got the freedom of Bletchley Park. Because our work was for Bletchley Park, which we never heard of then until recently. Nobody had heard of Bletchley Park, had they? And you say, I've got the freedom of Bletchley Park now. I can go when I like. And yes,
so
I haven't got the badges on today.
But at what time did you find out about Bletchley Park?
Because really recently. Only in the last few years.
So you were doing all this work and fixing the radio so the messages could come through, but you didn't know where all that was going.
No, I don't think we just didn't think in those days. We weren't allowed to speak about it. We didn't even talk to each other about it. There were only about 6 of us, radio mechanics, but there were wireless service sailors, ex-sailors who'd been on wireless work. They were in their 40s, I should say. We thought they were a bit old because we were in the 20s.
Well, they'd seem ancient, wouldn't they? They would seem...
They got families, you know.
Yeah, they would seem absolutely ancient. And
they knew more, they knew more really than we'd had more experience than we'd had, so they could be very helpful.
And when you found out about Bletchley Park, how did you feel when you realised how everything fitted together and your sort of contribution?
Well, it was a bit of a shock, really. But now, you see, I've happened to phone up Bletchley Park about another matter. I wanted to know about something money-wise, and about a quarter of an hour later, another lady phoned me. She said, I'm the curator of Bletchley Park. And she said, I know you've worked at a Y station, and we're opening up, trying to make a museum there now. They're altering it all and trying to make a museum. And we want a Y station, a listening station room or department. But she said, I've hardly got anything about a Y station. She said, would you do a write-up for me? And this was last year.
Good grief.
So, I did it. It took me a long time because I haven't got a computer, you see, and I won't have one. Don't remark. And I don't want one. But I did it all by hand. 37 pages of foolscap.
So you wrote everything about...
And sent it to Bletchley Park. She was very, very pleased with it.
So that
they
now...
hadn't had anything written about it like that
presumably
before.
that's on display now, then?
Yes, they've just taken some books there now. But my 2 boys, well, bless them really, but I was very sort of worried about the time. They decided it would make good reading in a little book. So they made the little book up for me.
Which is fantastic, because
it's just been published. But see, that's not, as far as I know, nobody's ever written about that before.
Which is just a Wren's tale, the secret link to Bletchley Park, and it really was secret.
And it's all true, you see. Every word in there is true. And 1 or 2 girls I met that were in the listening department who took down those messages, because we belong to an association at Kingston. We meet every month, and they belong to that. And they've given me little bits to add in there about what they did.
You still have, you've brought into the studio today your hat that you wore when you're in your 20s. Good grief. Look at that, fantastic. With HMS.
Do the right salute.
Absolutely.
Downwards.
You can still do the salute. Amazing. And then you have your Wren's hat as
we
well.
all got promoted at the end. It's all in that book. By the time we finished our course.
That's fantastic. That's brilliant.
And you've got to salute all the officers like that, not upwards.
For those who can't see at home, she is doing the proper salute here.
Only just.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not so good physically as I was, though.
you're doing all right. I tell you, you're doing all right for coming up to 90. You're launching this book at Waterstones tomorrow. People can come along and talk to you, talk a little about the history. Do you think at the time, if you'd have known what you were doing and how it was feeding into Bletchley Park and how important the code breakers were, that there might have been a bit of a fear there, or would you have just got on with it? Ignorance was bliss.
Can't answer that one.
No, I suppose it's difficult. I suppose it's just a job you did.
We were doing. It was just important, and we just got on with it, really.
And the time that you were in Scarborough, were there lots of raids on Scarborough at that time?
No, and I want to. Well, I better not go into too much detail because of the time, had I?
Yeah, go on. But were there any raids at all?
Not while I was there.
Right.
And I want to ask somebody about that tomorrow, if any of the older people know.
If there were any...
We never heard a bomber go over all the time we were there in that 2 years.
There were raids on Scarborough, if memory serves me right.
There was one earlier.
Yes, there was.
And my friend who joined up at the beginning of the war was in one of those raids. Because she heard the bomber go over and rushed into a shop outlet down on the...
what we can do
is... High Street, and this, you know, and the glass was all shattered round her. But that's the only bomb. I haven't put that in the book because I wasn't sure how true it was, you see, or she got the facts right.
Well, what we'll do is, because we'll come to the end of the interview now, if anybody can tell us, because there certainly was at least one bombing raid on Scarborough, and I think there were fatalities. If anybody can remember when the bombing raid was on Scarborough, if you could call Katie now on 01904 641 641, and then we can let Muriel know, which would be fantastic. Muriel, it's been lovely talking to you. This book is fabulous. It's a tiny book, but I tell you...
when it came out, only a few friends will have it. But it's on eBay, and sale on eBay, and we've had a lot of
ex-Wrens from Scarborough have actually got in touch.
Have they really?
Asked them to get involved.
Some wireless operators at Scarborough, a teleprinter operator, and other staff from Scarborough nearly 70 years ago have been writing letters to Mum as a result.
How fantastic.
And one lady's even got in touch from America.
That's brilliant. What time's the book signing tomorrow, Mark?
1 till 3.
1 till 3 at Waterstones. Well, thank you so much for coming in this afternoon. It's been an absolute privilege to meet you.
Thank you.
Muriel Davison, nearly 90, A Wren's Tale, your first book ever. And I hope the book signing goes well tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio, sharing a bit of your life.
I wouldn't be nervous, but I think when you know your subject and can remember it, it's not so bad, is it?
It isn't at all. Thank you so much indeed, and have a safe onward journey to Scarborough.
Thank you very much
for
seeing me.
BBC Radio